another episode of the Next Fix podcast. I've got my new friend Marcy with me here today, and as I kind of look through her story, her journey, you know, what I love to talk about is the comeback story. And so comeback story doesn't exist without some shitty moments and some rock bottom times and circumstances that you don't pencil into the calendar, right? They happen and you're thinking to yourself at the time, you know, what the hell do I do now? So Marcy, thank you for being a part of the show today. Thank you for spending your very valuable time with us. How are you living today?
Amazing. Really amazing.
Okay.
So amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And so, you know, as I typically do, I want to know, when did you look in the mirror and think to yourself, how the fuck did this happen? And what do I do next? And when you're asking yourself, I think anybody that might be watching is asked themselves that question and you truly don't know the answer. That's what I think is like, that's considered to be a rock bottom moment. You're clueless, right? And so I want to know more about like the tough times in your life and then how the hell did you get out of them?
Yeah, sure. So, my life, really, the day I was born started the events of trauma in my life. I was born with a cleft lip and palate, which means you have a split in your lip and you have no roof of your mouth. Your teeth are completely disfigured and your whole face is pretty much rearranged internally. Nothing is flowing or working correctly.
Well, hold on a second. I'm so sorry to pump the brakes so early, but to my knowledge, like what I thought a cleft lip was just, I thought it was just the front here. I always just thought, they're very ignorant, by the way. I totally don't. So when you're describing the top of your mouth and your teeth and your face, I had no idea that it was all of those things. And so you say without the top of your mouth, what does that mean? Yeah,
so like you have no roof of your mouth, like you have no palate in your mouth. So literally you're like, you have no tissue there. So your mouth is opened into your nose, right?
Whoa, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
So some people can just have the lip. Some people have the lip and the palate. I had the lip and the palate. And some people can just have no palate. So it depends how it shows up.
Yeah. Okay.
But the other thing is about it is that it can also represent that there is a tremendous amount of internal issues going on in the body. So like your heart can be defective, your whole digestive system can be completely maxed. Like you can have lots and lots and lots of issues. This can just be the symbolic thing you see on the outside.
Right.
So
my God.
Yeah.
So this is all day one. Day one, you show up. You show up. This is the world.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's sort of like a metaphor for the rest of like the first 18 years of my life. That kind of, you know, a metaphor for what ended up sort of unfolding. And, you know, I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty details. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. There's nothing really that is not known about me online. My whole story is out there, but I like to just try to keep the conversation moving. So, you know, in an effort to do that, I had my first surgery when I was 90 days old and my last one when I was 18 years old. And I had 25 procedures in between then and there, the last two being getting my jaws broken twice and reset. So major surgeries. Like my whole face, the way you see me today, is not at all what I looked like when I was a younger person. And, you know, my nose is redone and, you know, just everything about the way I look. So it was a long journey and I was very sick often. My immune system was compromised from the get-go, so I was constantly sick. I needed speech lessons. I got braces in kindergarten and got them off when I was a senior in high school. So that was a lot to contend with. And then who my parents were was a whole nother story. You know, my mom was 19 years old when she had me. My brother was 18 months old already. So she had him when she was 17. So she was very young. And my father was an active alcoholic. And we really didn't have anything. You know, I remember a time around the age of 6 that we lost everything in a bankruptcy, and my father moved our mobile home out into the middle of a field with no running water and no electricity. And we lived like that for a couple of years with no running water and no electricity. And he was really volatile. He was highly volatile, and you never really knew what version of him you were going to get. So there was always a lot going on, right? I had all these physical needs that never stopped until I was 18 and had my last surgery. And then we have my little brother, and then we have no material resources really to work with. So it was just like constant chaos and insecurity. So as I made my way into school, that's when I started getting teased and bullied because of the way that I looked and the way I spoke. And somewhere very early on, I knew that I was not a heterosexual normative person. I knew that something was different about me. So I can't say that I knew I was a lesbian, but I can say that I knew I was different. And I can say that I knew that I was attracted to the little girls in my class, when I was in kindergarten and first grade rather than the boys. And I was sitting in the middle of a Catholic school thinking, like, this is not good. I'm going to hell. And
Oh, yeah. I
right.
mean,
And
just
so
so much. I'm so sorry that my brain is really, it's like a lot. And I, everybody listening is not privy, but I even know that there's more to come. And so this is a lot. This is a lot. This is a lot. And so forgive me for even just, slowing you down. But okay, so you're going through, you're understanding you're different, but not because of, the surgeries and things like that, but now sexually and internally. And now you're questioning your spirituality existence because of where you were at in the Catholic school. Jesus, wow, it's so crazy. This is a lot. Yeah. So forgive me. Please go on.
yeah, no, it's okay. And so, and I came from a very Catholic family. Like my grandmother used to walk around carrying the rosary, praying the rosary while she walked, like very Catholic. And so there was an ideal and a concept, right? But meanwhile, my father's, drunk and throwing our stuff out on the lawn at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? But the very next morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting in the front row at church, right? Like,
Right. Right.
there's a lot of incongruency there, right? So as I'm growing up and doing the best that I can, I start figuring out that if I can just perform and be the smartest kid in the class and be the fastest runner at gym class and be the best on the basketball team, then people will kind of look past what my face looks like and how I'm feeling inside potentially, and I can make some friends. And so that's what I did. I started hustling for love. Whoever you wanted me to be was who I was going to be that day, right?
Right.
Whatever you needed me to be, I was going to do that. I was going to put your needs and wants ahead of my own. And by middle school, it was all starting to catch up with me, and I started drinking. I really started drinking around the age of 10. Like anytime I could get my hands on alcohol, I was drinking it, very early on. Get my dad a beer out of the fridge and I would chug half of it and then give him the other half. And that's as a
Whoa.
little kid. Like I can remember doing that like 5, 6 years old. And so that's right. I was very
So wild. Yeah.
I was very in tune with what was going on in my environment, and I was taking clues, right? And I could see that my dad was drinking alcohol, and I was like, oh yeah, I can see why you're doing that, right? Maybe I should start that. And so by middle school, I was really drinking as regularly as I could possibly drink as a middle school kid. And then I went to high school, and in high school, it was really hard, right? Because all your hormones are changing and all of these things. And so I really knew at that time that there's no doubt, like I am definitely attracted to the same sex, and this is awful. You've got to be kidding me, right? Like I felt like it was such a cruel joke after all of the stuff I was already contending with, right?
Yeah.
So I was just like, we're just going to push that down. We're just going to push it down, and we're just going to show up and be this person who likes, guys, and I'm going to date guys, and I'm going to be whatever. But I couldn't do it. Like I literally, you know what I mean? I literally couldn't force myself to do it. And it was so painful. And so the more painful it became, the more I was seeking out drugs and alcohol. And then we lost a bunch of friends. We lost 3 friends in 19 days, my freshman year of high school, and that was really impactful on me.
Well,
I
how
just
did that happen? Was that the drugs and alcohol, or was it something else? Or
It was they were both in car accidents. They were all in car accidents,
right, yeah.
and And so one was drug and alcohol related, and the other was actually just weather related, bad roads, icy
Right.
roads.
Right.
And so that really tweaked me out in a way that I can't really even still describe to this day. I also, I didn't have a firm footing and a firm foundation. And then to have these kids die at such a young age, I was only 14 years old, and have these kids die and like look at your own mortality and what that all means and whatever. But something really happened in that time period, and I really sort of never got back on the tracks. I gave up my basketball career. I had made the varsity team as a freshman in high school, and I gave up everything, and I just really devoted my life to getting loaded. I mean, that's basically right. The more often I could get loaded, the better it was for me. And, I started smoking marijuana and experimenting with psychedelics and, the whole thing. So I kept doing that for a while, and thinking like going through all these major surgeries in high school, one after the other, and which was not a lot of fun. And as I was doing all of this stuff, I wasn't dealing with anything. Like I wasn't dealing with anything from the past at all. It was just mounting and continuing. And so because of all of that, I basically I didn't have it within me at that point to change or be different, make a different choice or any of that kind of stuff. And so I just succumbed to it. And then when I got to the last surgery.
When you said succumb to it, still talk about drugs and alcohol, or?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. Just
right. You just
addiction,
like,
right? Like,
you're right.
this is how it's going to be. This is how I'm going to be. Right. And I don't really have a different choice. I thought I was at the end of my journey, like I had gotten accepted into college. I have no idea how I got accepted into college, but I did. And I thought, okay, here we go, right? Like this is the beginning. And this is where things are about to turn the corner for Marcy. Like we're going to paint a new picture and we're going to have some new opportunities. And so I was ready to go to college, and it was January 31st of 1994. And I was on my way to my after school job. And as I am approaching my job, I decided, go through town and listen to the last song that I'm listening to. And as I come back through town, this guy pulls out in front of me, and he never saw me, and I saw him, and I did everything I could try to do to avoid him, and I could not. I hit his car broadside, and the three passengers that were in his car all passed away. They all perished from the car accident. And I mean, I was 17 years old. Today I'm 49, and I think back to that time and being 17, right? 17 is just like such a tender age, right? Like so much going on already in your life and in the world and what you think and how you feel. Um, so it changed the rest of my life from that moment forward. I've never been the same person. And what ended up happening is I was not drinking and I was not doing drugs. A lot of people ask that about my story, but I was not. It was, I was on my way to my after school job, and so thankfully, no alcohol and no drugs. And I was not found legally responsible for the car accident in no shape, way, form, nothing.
Can I ask you, Marcy, like,
Yeah.
by your, I don't want to say dabbling, but by your alcohol and drug use, did people assume, like, did people that knew you assume, like, oh yeah, did they just assume that maybe you were drunk or something like that? Is that maybe what you feel like maybe people thought?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely could have. You know what I mean?
Right. It
It
could have,
wouldn't have
yeah.
been out of the question. That would be
Right.
for sure.
But it just so happened that you were just going to work, right? And that is like a
Yeah.
small, positive thing, because you're right. Because then who knows how many more layers of the shame and guilt that I'm sure you have till this day. I mean, I'm sure you're still carrying around something from that for sure. But yeah, okay. So, but you didn't, and that is, I mean, that's fortunate, right? And so,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
said 17, such a tender age, and then this happens on top of all this other, so many very deep layers. I mean, astounding. Like I was just reading about how if a if a child starts drinking before the age of 13, or I guess, technically any child, so any person that's under the age of 13, the likelihood of them to become an alcoholic or suffer from alcoholism is like economically, statistically, it's almost a certainty. And here you are mentioning 5 or 6 years old. Mind blowing. I mean, that is so crazy. The chances that I'm able to be speaking to you today is like zero. It's crazy. So I
Right.
feel very fortunate that you are here, and then not just here, but a better version of that person. But to your point, right? You're 17. You're at a tender age. This happens to you, and then what kind of unfolds after the accident?
Yeah, nothing good for a really long time. I just really sunk into the depths of despair. Our body and our brain are brilliant, in how it protects us. And so I lived in shock for probably like a good 3 to 4 years after the car accident. And thankfully, really, because if I didn't, and I would have had to try to process everything that had happened, I mean, I was suicidal daily. So I wanted to die every single day. I didn't feel like I deserved the air that I was breathing. I felt responsible for these people's deaths. And, every day I woke up and I just would say to myself, so you killed 3 people and you're a piece of shit. Right. Like that's how my day started. And so then it would be immediately I'd reach over and load the bong and then just start getting annihilated because I literally could not deal with it. Like it was, it was beyond what I could understand or had the capacity for. So that was like that for really like almost 10 years. And I left Vermont where I was born and raised and where the accident happened. And I left there and I went to Florida for a while, but there was a lot of litigation going on from the car accident for years, 4 years. And it was awful, right? I couldn't escape it. And so the only escape I had was drugs and alcohol. And thank God I did, because I would have not made it here
Right,
today. Right. And
right,
I'm really, really crystal clear on that. And so what ended up happening is I moved to Colorado. And when I got here, I met this woman and she had a little girl and her name was Brianna. Her name is Brianna. That was 24 years ago. And today we're married and I ended up raising Brianna and, we have a wonderful life. But what happened was one day I picked up Brianna from school and I had been drinking and I was going to bring her back to the bar, just like what my dad used to do with me. He'd pick me up and we'd go to the bar. And so I was going to do the exact same thing with her. And we were driving back to the bar and it was like this moment in time where I was like in 2 different universes at once, literally. It was like I was a little girl in the seat and my dad was driving and I was also driving my daughter, right? And it was like, oh my God, I'm literally doing the exact same thing to her that my dad did to me.
right.
And I'm
Yeah,
right. And I just made the decision. I'm like, she didn't ask for this. I'm not her biological parent. So now I'm going to come into this kid's life and just be a complete asshole. Right. Like
right. Yeah.
she doesn't deserve this. So I'd love to tell you that that day I didn't go to the bar and I quit drinking, but that's not true. What
Mm,
happened though was that was the seed that was planted in that moment. And sometime in the next 10 days, I don't know exactly, but on March 25th, 2003, I went to my first 12-step meeting and I've never drank a drop since. I've never had another drug and I've never had another drink. And that was 22 years ago.
amazing.
Right. That's when I'd love to again say that my whole life became magnificent, but it's not. What ended up happening to me is that as you get sober, right, everything that I was masking started coming out and up, and it showed up physically and it showed up mentally and emotionally and
Yeah,
spiritually. I mean, I was a fucking disaster. When I say disaster, I was having like 10 panic attacks a day. I could not sleep. I had psoriasis about 80% of my body.
right.
I had a chronic sinus infection. I mean, I was a disaster. And I wanted to, part of my story is that I really never stopped obsessing about alcohol for the first 17 years that I was sober. So every day it's been a battle of like, I'm not drinking today. I'm not drinking today. it's noon. Yeah, I'm still not going to drink right now. Right. Like it is, I
Right.
didn't have this luxury of going to meetings and my life changing. And now I don't think about alcohol. That's not been my story. And I know it is for other people, and that's fantastic. But I just think it's really important to say that part of my story. And so what ended up happening is physically, I've always been sick, you know. So part of the other piece of the story that I didn't mention is that I've been sick my whole life. I'd never been well. I've chronically
Mhm.
been sick since the time I was born. So even with all these other things going on, the surgeries, my father, the drinking, the whatever, I still also have always been sick. So once I stopped drinking, the chronic illness flared like crazy.
Right.
And so I was going to therapy. I was going to 12-step meetings. I, you know, did everything that everybody told me to do. And I wanted to die. I literally wanted to die. I could not come to terms with this car accident. I didn't even realize that the experience for the first 17 years of my life was actually all trauma. I had no idea.
So Marcy, let me just I want to touch on something really quickly because it's so peculiar. Because as I'm listening to you, you're kind of giving like this tiny bit of credit to alcohol for like, you had said like, thank God you did mask the trauma immediately after the accident. And it makes me think that there are some medicinal properties. I say that loosely, but it could be exactly why alcohol was considered to be like a medicine for so long. And I'm talking, hundreds of years ago. And now we're kind of looking at it a little bit differently in the most present, you know, culture or in science. We're looking at how much of a poison it is, but it can actually, like, I know and I think and I agree with you that there were times in my life where alcohol was somehow holding me together. Like in the depths of my alcoholism, I had diabetes, and for whatever reason my body was still somehow metabolizing that alcohol and keeping me going. I don't have any idea, but it was like I don't know if it's like the relentless biological nature of our bodies and minds and our souls that kind of just makes the use of the alcohol, like takes it and says, okay, this is what we got, guys. So we're going to kind of cover up these memories with a little bit of this alcohol, and we're going to use a tiny bit of these nutrients, which is a stretch by any means saying that there's nutrients, but the body figures it out, like, okay, well, this is all we're putting into our body, guys, so let's use it. And somehow here you and I are talking to each other, and it's like it stretches the possibility, like it shouldn't have been. But even as I'm speaking to you, you're kind of lightly saying that if it hadn't have been for all of the bong rips and the bottles of alcohol, that you're not even sure that you would have made it through those next few years after the accident. And I get that. I get that because there's some points in my memory that I'm like, shit, like had I not been completely wasted, I don't know if I would have made it through that little tiny period of time. And so it's such a tricky thing to say. And I know for certain not everybody would get that or take it in constructively, that's for sure. But I think I could see that where like you kind of like have like, well gosh, thank God I did that. Now you're saying that on the other end of things. So it's like it's a little easier to do it that way. But but wow, what a wild way to navigate all these massively heavy circumstances in your life. And I also wanted to point out quickly too that for people that are in recovery, those little seeds, I say things like you mentioned a lot, right? Like the first time somebody actually prayed for me, held my hand and prayed for me, the first time ever in my life. Now, did I just like get sober and kind of like turn my life around and then the next day? Hell no. I went doing the exact same things, but for me, it planted the seed. And now looking
Yeah.
back, I'm like, had that seed not been planted, there's no way I would have made it. And so I see what you're saying, that even though you have this epiphany, you see this little girl who's not deserving of that behavior of you at the time. You have this like multi-universal presence, and you are your father, but you're also the little girl, and you're driving to the bar, and anybody would say, you didn't turn around? You didn't stop? Because they don't understand.
Right.
So there's so many other pieces that have to fall in place, but the seed is what's so important. And so,
Right.
what an outrageously amazing part of the story is that you were, having this, mental exercise, if you will, like seeing yourself in her position, also your father in your position, and then you went to the bar anyway. And some people might say you're a total scumbag for that, and maybe you are,
Hmm.
but like it had to happen. It had to happen.
Yeah,
And so I'm glad it
exactly.
did, you know.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Really, I was doing all the things, but I was still suffering greatly. I went to multiple places that treat trauma and deal with trauma. I mean, I did everything. I've been everywhere, read every book, talked to every healer, every psychiatrist, psychologist that I could find that felt like they could help me. And eventually I got some relief when I went to the Meadows in Arizona, and they really helped me. What I learned is that, what happened was an accident, and I didn't kill three people. Right? Three people lost their lives that day, but I didn't kill them. And it's unfortunate. And that sort of started some things in the right direction for me and helped a lot. But really what ended up happening is I transferred my addiction from one thing to the other, right? I transferred it from drugs and alcohol into working and achieving and accomplishing. And what I was looking for is the whole to myself, right? To fill myself up. Like I never felt worthy of any love, goodness, right? Like really, I would tell you that on the outside. And I was a super achiever all of my life. Like it didn't really matter what the obstacle was, I was going to overcome it. And I've done that. That's been the story of my life. However, what ended up happening is because I still was operating in this very sick body that was based out of fear, guilt, resentment, anger, right? All these low vibration emotions from the survival that I had lived through for the first 17 years of my life. I just carried that all forward. And so my nervous system was operating from this place of survival constantly. Well, that's going to keep the body sick. And in February 2021, I feel like I had my coming to Jesus meeting. And I had been having the chronic illness was off the chart. I was spending like $5,000 a month in supplements just to keep myself alive and moving. Every day I woke up and I felt like I had the flu. I could have any variety of symptoms on any given day. Most days I didn't want to get out of bed. Like truthfully, I felt like I was physically dying. And in December of 2020, after a long year of COVID and whatnot, it was so difficult. I lost both my grandparents and all these things happened. And my grandparents were like my world. And they died within 9 months of each other. And then just the stress of COVID and my career and whatever. And in December, I started having these tremors in my brain, all the way down to my feet, all throughout my body. And I didn't tell my doctor because I knew she was going to tell me I would have to quit my job. And I was a mortgage banker and I had worked really hard for this career. I performed in the top 1% in the country. It was everything to me. And so I didn't tell her because I was like, she's going to tell me I have to quit. So, well, in February, after, 90 days of this going on, I was literally sitting at my desk one day and I couldn't tell if my desk was moving, if my computer was moving, or if I was moving because the tremors were so bad. And I was having trouble breathing and my heart was erratic and I just break out in a sweat for no reason sitting here. And so I called my manager and I said, I can't do this. Like, I'm really sick and I haven't told anybody and I'm really sorry and whatever. She said, just take a long weekend. It's probably stress. And, yeah, I ended up being bedridden for 40 days and I had mast cell activation syndrome and histamine intolerance. And basically, that's like when your immune system and your nervous system go absolutely crazy and they can't tell what's safe and what's not. So it starts perceiving the entire world as if it's not safe and it's a threat. So it creates an allergic reaction within your body, like anaphylaxis, right? I
Right.
never had full blown anaphylaxis, but I had all the symptoms that happen right before you have the full blown anaphylaxis. So it was a nightmare. It got so bad that I was reacting to my own thoughts. The only food I could eat was boiled potatoes or I would have an allergic reaction. I could not sleep. Every neurotransmitter in my brain was off the chart. It was awful. And there were a couple of days in a row that I thought I was going to die. Literally in the middle of the night, I thought I was dying. All the blood vessels in my body were dilated, and I knew if I moved, I was going to die because my heart could not pump the blood anymore because my blood pressure was so low, and it was COVID. And I knew that if I called 911 and I went to the hospital and I interacted with COVID, I would for sure die because I was already having my own cytokine storm in my body. That's what was going on. And so I knew it wasn't an option. So I had this reckoning. Like I literally had this reckoning. I stared death in the eye, and I got it. Like I got it in a way that I've never gotten anything in my life. And what I got was that I could see it all so clearly, is that I had switched addictions, that I was still living from a place of survival and fear, regardless of the 20 years of therapy I had done, and, thousands and thousands and thousands of 12-step meetings. Like it didn't matter that's great. And that's wonderful that I did that, but I had not healed what the problem was. And the problem was me. It was within me, right? I wasn't the problem, but it was within me, literally in my body, in the cells of my being. And that it didn't matter how much I accomplished or how much money I had made or how many accolades I had received. I'd been a terrible parent. I'd been a shitty wife. Right? Like I hadn't shown up for the people that I love the most in my life because I was so worried that I was always going to be living in a trailer with no running water and no electricity again. And that was the only thing I could think about every single day, is that I'm going to go back there and that's how I'm going to have to live. And I'm not going to have what I need and I'm not safe. So I got it. So I made a decision. If I live, then I'm going to change my entire life. Like I'm never, ever going to be the same person again. And I'm going to absolutely change everything about me. And that's what I did. That's literally what I did. And I was so sensitive that no medication could help me. Anything that I couldn't even hold my cell phone. If I held my cell phone, then the tremors were just off the chart. I mean, I couldn't take medicine. I couldn't do anything. So the only way that I could heal is by healing myself with my mind and using the power of my own body. And that's exactly what I did. I healed my mind and I healed my body. And today I have none of those conditions at all. And I live a completely different life.
Yeah. It's okay. All right. So using your mind and your body. Okay. I need to know more than that. Like, so how are you implementing this? You have the realization that sticks this time, right? This realization, right? This epiphany is real. And you started putting boots to ground on some real, implementing some action and obviously changing yourself completely. But what does that look like? Is it a framework? Is it a system? I mean, how are you implementing it, or how did you implement it? And I'm imagining you're helping other people do the same.
Yeah, exactly. So this is basically what I've created on the other side of all of this, is understanding, right? So it's basically, I have a 3-step process, right? You have to address the mind, you have to address the body, and you have to change the frequency of your body, right? So the mind, where you start with the mind, is that we have beliefs. Most beliefs we're not even aware of that we hold them, right? So my primary belief that I was constantly running on is that I'm not safe and I'm not going to be okay. Right? That was fundamentally what ruled me. So whatever the belief is going to drive what you think. So whatever you're thinking then creates how you feel. If I think, oh, this is a great day, I'm so stoked, then I feel good. If I think, oh my God, this is terrible, things aren't going to work out, then I don't feel good. I don't feel elevated in any way. And then how I feel determines how I behave. So if I'm not feeling good and I'm feeling pretty low in my mood, then I'm probably not going to do a lot. I'd rather sit around and watch some TV or not talk to anybody, probably isolate myself, maybe drink some beer, right? Like my mood, my actions are going to match how I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And so, but it all originates with the belief, right? The belief is what runs the body. The body is a representation of what is going on for us internally. Don't ever fool yourself, right? Like whatever is going on externally in your environment and in your body is a representation of your interior thoughts, beliefs, right? And so getting to the core of that and unraveling and unpacking all of that was step one, right? Then rewiring the brain so that the brain now can believe, because the brain is always making decisions based out of the past. It's never making decisions based out of what's going on in this moment. That's not the
Yeah.
way we're designed, right? So if you want to make new decisions, then you have to put new wiring in the brain. There's no other way to do it. There's no other way to do it. So I had to train my brain and my body to know that I was safe. But you also can't just think you're safe. You have to feel safe.
Right. Right.
It's like trying to tell a dog it's safe when it's thundering out and it's terrified of the thunder. How well does that work? It doesn't. Right.
Yeah.
So it's the same with the body. I can tell myself all day long, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. Yeah, well, guess what? That's not going to work. The body has to start to feel safe. So that's where step two comes in, is getting the body on board with the brain, right? So it's learning how to re-regulate the nervous system. And how you do that is integrate the fragmented parts of yourself that happened over these years and experiences of trauma and just life. Right? We fragment because our nervous system cannot handle in the moment what is happening. So it creates another part of ourselves to keep going. We adapt. We make these adaptations to be able to keep going so that the organism can survive. Well, we've got to go back and get those parts of us that were fragmented along the way and release the trauma out of the body so that the nervous system can operate correctly and functionally and efficiently. Right? And as soon as you do these two things, then the body is going to start healing automatically. There's nothing really, you have to raise the frequency too. But if you can just do 1 and 2 right there, then
Right.
you'll start seeing these massive shifts in the body. Massive.
Right. Okay.
It doesn't matter what the illness is because we're all energy.
Right.
We are electromagnetic beings.
Yeah.
So the diagnosis is just describing the set of symptoms that you're exhibiting, but it really doesn't matter, right? What
Yeah.
the symptoms are, because it works for whatever.
So this is, I love this stuff. I like almost, I know we're getting into the woo woo, but I love it. But I believe it is more realistic than anything else. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, like that we get these symptoms and then we rush to treat them with modern day medicine. And we're finding more and more that it's just not the path to really go down. I am curious though, if you're going back and you're gathering these fragments, and you'd already mentioned one, right? Living in the trailer with no power and no water, right? And I say this with a certain level of understanding. You and I share several parts of their story. My mom took me to bars. We lived in like a concrete house, I guess, but it was like no water, no power. We had an extension cord coming from the house that was next door, kind of thing. Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
some similarities, right? But I'm curious,
Mm-hmm.
like, how did you, with that particular fragment, or how does that work when you're going into your past, you're seeking out these fragments, you're looking to integrate them back into yourself to become more whole? How do you go about that? Like, and this is a personal question because I don't know how to do that, right? So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that have to happen. One is there's somatic work that needs to be done, right? Because there's a lot that we can't access in our own cognitive mind, right? Like we don't know all of the ramifications, but the body always knows. The body never forgets, right? And so when you go into the body somatically, which means that you become present with what's happening in the body, then the body is this dynamic being. Most people think the body is just this stagnant thing that exists and we just tell it what we want to do and it does it. No, the body is a living dynamic being. And so when you get inside of your body, if we had more time, I would walk you through a little exercise. But if you get in your body, then you're going to notice that my right pinky is actually tingling. Actually, I notice there's a tension in my left heel. I can feel that there's a sort of tension here in my right side. You're going to notice all these things that you never noticed. What all of these things are the imprints of the experiences in our lives that we've had. They are literally, right? Like this is who you are. And then we have these imprints and they come in and they go over the original blueprint, right? And so when those imprints come in and cover up that blueprint like that, then that changes the flow of energy in the body. And when the energy gets changed, then the body starts becoming disrupted.
Hmm.
Right? So
Yeah.
what we do is we go in, we find the imprint, the holding in the body, and
Hmm.
we remove it. Right?
Right.
And we
Right. Right.
just do it by listening to the body, because quantum physics says that whatever is observed changes.
That is very cool too. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's the truth. Wow. And so yeah, so now those are the first two steps that you were just kind of going over. And then you alluded to the third, I guess, step, is addressing the frequency.
That's
Right.
right.
And so,
Yeah.
and you've kind of touched on some of the survival frequencies that people can get stuck in, and where you're feeling anxiety and fear for your life. And, if you stay stuck in those lower level frequencies, it causes a slew of issues for you.
Mhm.
So help me to know, like, what would be that third element when the frequencies are starting to become addressed, and incorporating that as well.
Yeah, so anything that's operating below 200 megahertz in frequency is creating disease in the body, right? So it's guilt, shame, hatred, jealousy, right? Curiosity is what changes. Curiosity is neutral. It operates at 200 megahertz, right, in frequency. So at 200, then you're no longer creating disease. You're also not improving the body, but you're not hurting the body, right? So if you can just move into curiosity, then that's the beginning of the change that can happen, right? It's like, oh, I wonder why this is showing up for me, instead of, oh my God, this happened to me again, right? It's like, oh, I wonder what this is here for, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so it's this whole new way of being in the world that starts with trying to stay at curious and above, right? Joy, love, peace, calmness, connection, enlightenment. All of these things are the higher states of frequency, right? And so, but the only way we can start to raise the frequency is to go all the way back to the beginning and address the belief, right? Because if the belief is faulty, then all you're doing is basically putting carpet over the pile of poop in the middle of the room, right? Like I can sit here all day long and be like, oh, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, right?
Mm.
But 5 minutes later, what's going to happen is the thing that's running the rest of me is going to start firing the old faulty beliefs of I'm not okay, I'm not safe, I'm not going to be okay, right? And so an elevated frequency for me is moving my body every day, eating food that's alive, right? The way I think about what's going on in the world, I see everything through the eyes of awe and wonder today instead of it's going to get me, right? Everything is a miracle and nothing is ordinary, right? Like I think
Right.
everything is extraordinary. Um, I I keep to myself a lot. I have friends, but I'm not out in the world. I spend a lot of time just being in nature. Nature is the place for me, like above and beyond anything else. I am in nature. If
Right.
I could sleep outside, I would, right? Like it's my thing. And there's so much wonder and awe in nature. And it's so healing and it regulates our nervous system in a way that not much else can. And so it's that combination, it's the right combination of all of the things that raises the frequency automatically. But the driver of what raises your frequency really is what you're thinking and how you're feeling. Feeling is important, right? So I don't just look at the trees and think to myself, oh, those are beautiful trees. I look at the trees and I say, oh my gosh, those are gorgeous. And then I let myself feel how amazing it is that I get to look at the tree.
Right.
And when you do that, something opens in you, right? And that's your electromagnetic field. That is literally the electric system in your body. And you just turned it on. And when you turn that thing on, then that is raising your frequency up. And so this is how I healed myself, literally. And this is what I
Yeah.
do with my clients.
I love. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because so what developed as a result of you figuring this out?
Yeah, so like I try, like a lot of people that I've studied over the years. I mean, I've been studying this stuff for really like 25 years, as long as I've been sober, and yeah, all different therapy models and whatever. And so I've taken bits and pieces of stuff, but what I could never find the silver bullet, but I like a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, Dr. Kim Duramo, Dr. Lisa Rankin, Dr. Deepak Chopra. doctors, right? So you said earlier, this is woo woo, and it's not, it's science, right? And it's just not mainstream medicine because it doesn't make a lot of money, because we have the potential to tap into it ourselves. And so that's why people don't talk about it, because it's not making big pharma money, And so it's like, this is the way that we're going, I think, as a race and as a species, is to learn how to care for our own self, right? And so basically what I did is I went back on the other side when I started feeling well. I went back and I looked at all the things that I did and put together a roadmap to help people heal. So like the people that I work with are addicts, alcoholics. I work with a lot of people who have been sober for 30 years and are absolutely miserable, and they don't understand why, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a real person out there. And you and I both know that is, for me, I find that to be so sad, because they've got that very imperative step down. They got sober, but for some reason they just keep re-entering this life that's just bound or tethered, or and so then they start to be grumpy, and I'm like, you've done so well to like overcome such a large challenge. It's like, let's go, let's like use that momentum and like get to another level. But it does pain me for somebody that's been sober 20, 30 years, 10 years, whatever it may be, and they're just pissed. And it's like, hey, there's still like let's keep the momentum and like maybe knock down some other achievements. And I don't know, it does, those particular people I feel like need your work the most. And so what your work is fantastic. But what developed? I mean, is it a group, or you said clients? I mean, how does that look these days?
Yeah, so I've been doing this now about a year and a half, formally coaching people. Right now, I just work with people individually. I'd love to start doing some group work and whatnot, but I just haven't gotten there yet, I'm so focused on the clients that I have that this is working out really good. So it's kind of like, why do more? But I can see the need for group work because I don't have enough time to help the amount of people that need the help. I work with lots of people who are chronically ill, and really people who are struggling with trauma, and especially complex trauma, and they don't know how, like, they've done everything and they can't figure it out. They haven't been able to figure it out, how to get on the path of where they really want to be. Those are my people. But yeah, I work with them independent or individually, and I work through the process that I just basically laid out here in a very systematic way. And, all of my clients, every single one of my clients within the longest person has been 4 weeks of working with me, and they have like, woo, the lights come on and they literally become a different person right in front of my eyes.
I
And
love it.
yeah, it's so, I mean, like, it's so, there's nothing
All right.
better, really.
So, all right. So somebody wants to work with Marcy. What does that look like? Where do they go? What do they
yeah,
punch in?
You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, right? You can find me there. Or you can go to my website at marcylanglois.com and you can connect with me there.
Yeah. And I'm going to have everything in black and white. I'm going to get everything laid out for everybody. But I have greatly enjoyed this conversation because this is my own kind of stepping stone. I'm getting into, even though I was projecting it on other people, like, hey, there's these other levels, but I'm really speaking to myself. I'm getting to these next stages that involve energy work and frequencies, and I've been paying more attention to this with myself. I'm super, super stoked that you are out there leading the way. But yeah, okay, guys. All right, this has been another episode of The Next Fix. Marcy, thank you so much for your time. All right, see you on the next one.